right now. And that change is really, derived from two things. There's a record low when it comes to unemployment, and that's just draining the labor pool for restaurants. And combine that with the fact that there's just, we typically cater, the restaurant space to younger workers, and there's a much smaller population of younger workers these days. And so, that's what we're seeing in terms of change. You have those challenges combined with the fact that the customer expectation from an experience perspective has only increased. And you just see that the demand is there for operating a much tighter ship. Restaurateurs are doing that, short staffed now, they're facing thinner margins, and it's just causing a lot of stress and a lot of business risk. And that's why we're here.
Yeah, right on. I totally agree with all those points. Let's try Maeve Webster from Mini Matters. Maeve, how would you answer that?
Difficult to follow up 3 very strong responses. You all took some of mine, so I'll come up with some other ones. I'd say that building off of the others, Sabrina made a really good point about how diverse food service is now with regard to the types of operations. And I think what's really interesting, and I think we're seeing it now, and we're going to see it a lot more, it kind of combines what Sabrina and what Josh were saying, is that a lot of these new operations are going to be created to address the labor issues. And how do you maximize the labor you've got? How do you maximize the resources? We're already seeing some chain restaurants and probably independent restaurants are doing the same thing, where they're creating ghost-style restaurants that only exist in the back of their house to really maximize those times when when the restaurants don't have a lot of orders, they don't have a lot of people in-house. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that creativity that's going to be expanding what one operator is doing to maximize everything they already have and to get as much profit and revenue out of their resources now rather than trying to expand out. So I think that's definitely a big one. Like Chef David was saying, trends are moving so quickly and they're hitting nationally now rather than small areas of the country. One of the big challenges there is that supply is going to be really stretched. We've got very unique ingredients coming in that have very small sources at the moment that can't build out fast enough to hit the supply as quick as trends are moving through to mass, operators and mass manufacturers. So supply is going to be an issue on that end. And then for restaurants that rely on prepared foods, manufacturers that have to really ramp up their manufacturing process can't create prepared foods fast enough in many cases to keep on top of those trends to help quick service restaurants, convenience stores, etc., leverage those trends as quickly as they might like. So we're going to have to see a lot of big changes in manufacturing hit, as well as the supply side and ag tech. And we're already seeing a lot of new tech at ag. We're seeing new production processes that are helping to drive those trends faster and make more nimble operators within both ag and manufacturing. So I think tech is going to be at the heart of a lot of what we do. I don't think that's surprising to anybody on the phone, whether it's back of house, front of house, at the manufacturing level or at the ag tech level. And I think over the next 2 years, some of those industries are going to be radically changed as a result of tech and how tech's going to impact what they can do and how quickly they can do it.
Right on. Thanks, Maeve. I totally agree. I agree with everything you said. Think about it. In our world, at Cisco, we work with suppliers, manufacturers, and 5 years ago, talk about plant-based protein alternatives or options was not a conversation we were having 5 years ago. 5 years ago, we're just getting used to the gluten-free expression. Now all of a sudden, it's got plant-based explosion, and everyone's getting caught a little behind the 8 ball here. Mm-hmm. So one more panelist, Jason. I'd love your input on the same question. What are some of the big trends you're seeing sitting in Calgary?
Well, sitting in Calgary, but around the world too. Our network is in 5 countries. And also on our show, Real Hospitality Live, we have this conversation with my guests where I'm seeing that even from an operational perspective, although I agree with some of the points that the other guests are making, restaurant owners are fatigued by the constant barrage of being told that the industry is changing fast and they have to adopt all of every new shiny object that comes through their door, whether or not that's an app whether or not that is a new method of this or a new method of that. The reason why restaurateurs get into this business is for two reasons. Number one is we love to feed people. We love hospitality. We love connecting socially. That's the core and the basis of the hospitality industry, and it has been since the time of Homer and the Iliad. The second reason is we're insane.
You chefs are suckers for punishments. I've always said that as a sales rep. I always go, you guys work so hard.
But what I'm getting back from the industry and operators is, you know what I want to do is focus on my food. I want to focus on my guests. I want to focus on my community. I want to focus locally on local ingredients. I want to be really good at what I do. I want to know who I'm serving, and I want to know who my customers are. So, and when we get into conversations about tech, the first thing that happens in a restaurant operator's face is, first, their eyes roll back, and two, they say, I either don't have time for that or I don't understand it. So these are the key changes that I'm seeing, is that we're seeing a reversion back to, I just want to do what I do well, and I want people to understand what I'm doing in that. And my local community is who supports me, regardless of whether or not it's a franchise, whether it's a mom and pop shop, whether or not it's a ghost kitchen or a takeout. Your local community is who is really who your clients are. And the restaurateurs get that. That's why they get into business, is so that they can be a part of that community. And I think that they're tired of being told that things are changing faster than they can keep up with or want to.
Jason, are you suggesting they should be following all these things? Or are you saying just stay true to the food experience and the guest experience? And
absolutely, I'm suggesting that they don't want to. They don't want to follow these things. They don't want to get on board with the newest shiny object anymore. They've done it for the last 5 to 10 years, and they've spent their money on it. They've tried it. It's not working for them necessarily. Maybe some of these things have great nuggets in them, but they can't handle all of it all at once. And not only can they not handle it all of it once, but they can't operate it traditionally and on a foundational level when their mind is, oh, how many skip orders did we get tonight? Well, you know what? You got 30. But
okay,
so you opened a bunch of money.
Okay, thank you, Jason. You actually opened the door where I want to go. Let's explore this new concept called third-party delivery services. I'd love to hear from any of the panelists, your thoughts around this. I can tell you from my side of the fence, working with customers and restaurateurs, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of worry. Should I do it? Do I need to do it? If I do it, I can't make money at it. I'd love to hear anyone's perspective on this whole category of third-party delivery. Should I be in it or not? Or if I'm going to be in it, are there ways to navigate this in a manner that actually helps me, not hurt me? So who would like to put up their hand first and jump in? Anyone?
I'll jump in.
Maeve, go ahead.
Yeah, so I probably won't ever get any third-party delivery consultant clients at this point, but I would say that the third-party aggregators, they've done a really smart thing, and they've leveraged the demand for delivery and sort of forced operators' hands so that if they want to get into delivery, they are the easiest ways for them to do it, because delivery requires tech knowledge, social media knowledge, all of that tech experience that most operators, especially independent operators, don't have. And so these third-party aggregators, they can do it. They get it off the ground fast. And so that seems like the best way to leverage delivery if you want to get in it, because there's all this pressure around you should get into delivery. So they were smart that way. But I think that you give up so much control and profitability to those third-party aggregators. They control all the information on your patrons, what they're ordering, when they're ordering. They're not going to hand that over to every single operator so that you can respond accordingly based on what's selling, what's not selling. You have no idea how well things are actually being delivered and whether it's the fault of your back of house or if it's the fault of the third-party aggregator. But I can guarantee if an operator or food is delivered to a patron and it's not good, they're blaming the restaurant, not the third-party aggregator. And there's no way for an operator then to know where the breakdown was in the system in order to address it well. So I think there are a lot of challenges with those third-party aggregators. And I think an operator needs to think very carefully about whether this delivery, first of all, fits your operation, if it makes sense for you based on the resources you've got and the patrons that you appeal to. And if delivery is a good idea, think very hard about whether you can do that on your own and control that entire process, because you'll be better off, I think, in the end if you can. But if you can't and the third-party aggregators are the way you feel like you need to go, then know that you're giving up quite a bit. And it may be a lot of revenue coming in, but not a lot of profitability that's actually doing you any good.
Thanks, Maeve. Anyone else want to contribute? Go ahead,
Yeah,
David.
those are great points, Maeve, and I definitely agree. Both from experiencing it on my hand from receiving from these third-party companies is the quality of food. Where we all know as chefs, as diners, people who have dined at a restaurant or even cooked at home, hot food needs to be hot, cold food needs to be cold. And a lot of times a restaurant's menu might not translate to delivery. Where say you order a medium rare steak and some fries. That's something I would not suggest putting on a Uber Eats or Postmates menu, because that's not going to translate to delivery, and there is no breakdown or really no point of kind of pinpointing where the problems lay, where it was a line cook dropping the ball or just slowed service, where it might have not even been the driver's fault, where it was just traffic or an accident or them getting lost. So a lot of variables there where I definitely do agree wholeheartedly with those cons. But in the same point, I do see pros where you can use it. Case in point, Atlanta. To me, Atlanta is worse than California in traffic at times, because essentially the infrastructure is of a small southern city, but you have these cars, people moving down, buildings on top of buildings, where there's a lot of variables where somebody might want to go out where there might be traffic or there might be rain or a long wait. They might then want to opt for that third-party service, where then they might not be getting that, that $120 bill they might have got that they came into the restaurant, but they still may get that 40 to 50 by them ordering that same food and getting it delivered. Also, advertisement. Uber is everywhere. Uber is global. A lot of these third-party delivery companies are global. So them being able, even though they can't see the data on which they're getting, to be able to have that accessibility, to have their name on these sites, that brand recognition and alignment with these companies, that's a huge advertisement tool they can use to kind of get that exposure out there. And as far as labor in itself, instead of having that one dedicated delivery driver, you now have access to all of these different third-party companies, where you have that one driver that's in and out making orders. You now have a team of drivers where instead of delivering one order one by one, you can now potentially have 5 orders, 10 orders going all at once. And that's labor that you're not worrying about.
Thanks, David. Anyone else?
You're welcome.
Jason, go ahead.
Great points from both of you. I want to speak to it again from an operator's point of view, where we look at the percentages and how much it costs us as operators to have this benefit or this service. When we consider 25 to 35% paying out to a third-party operator, you got to move a lot of money around to get that. So you've subtracted your advertising budget, you subtracted your profit. I don't care what kind of restaurant you're in. If you're pulling 18% profit at the end of the day after you've paid all your bills, all your licenses, all your people, all your suppliers, 25 to 35%, the math doesn't jive. And at the end of the day, it actually occurred to me this morning as I was thinking about this question: drive around your city and drive into the parking lot of all of the restaurants that have recently closed. What do you see on the front of all the restaurants? Third-party delivery stickers.
So are you, Jason, are you saying that's the cause, or is that a symptom of maybe they weren't doing
I'm saying
well?
it's a symptom because, again, the math doesn't work.
Yeah.
So again, the price has to justify, you have to do a lot of volume, but again, at 25 to 35%, where are you pulling this other money from, right? So yes, you can look at, does it make sense for you to have your own delivery people, your own labor, your own insurance, et cetera, if that's the business you're in. You have to figure out where you're going to pull that other money from and move it over. And is their marketing worth it? The other side of that is, like David said, what's the quality of food when it shows up? I've literally walked out of the restaurant behind a driver who took a pizza, a gourmet pizza out of our restaurant, shoved it sideways into the bag.
Wow.
Walked out.
Sideways.
So I literally had to go, put my hand on his shoulder and say, you're not taking that to a guest this way. You're not taking that to one of my customers.
Wow.
You come back and you wait. And we will make it again. We're not sending that. We're not getting blamed for that happening. So again, like David said, the quality of the food going out, even pizza, for example.
Yeah.
Who is going to be to blame when the customer says, I received this order. All the toppings were tossed down to the side of the box. It looks terrible. I paid good money for this. Third party's going to take that money off of what you get at the end of the week or biweekly when they pay you. They may not tell you why. And so when you supposedly are going to get your payout from them, you take a look at all the deductions and all the subtractions over and above the 25 to 35% what they're going to charge you. So there are so-called benefits, but there's an awful lot of downfalls to it.
To chime in on that, Jason, can I ask you a question as a person that has their pulse on the beat of the retailer every day in, day out? Do you think that the third-party delivery companies are here to stay, or something that'll phase out as time goes by with restaurants and them not being happy with the percentage, the quality of food being delivered? Where do you see it trending or downtrending going forward the next 5-10 years?
Beat me to my question, David. Thank you.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Is it here to stay, guys? What's the opinion?
I think so. I think
there will be a revolt.
I think 2 reasons. People like easiness, people like accessibility and convenience. And for that reason, I think it'll stay where just sometimes you don't want to go out, drive that, 10 minutes, 20 minutes when you can just stay home and somebody rings your doorbell. I think it's here to stay.
Greg, can I comment? Sorry,
Jay?
the voice of
Oh,
Jay.
there's Jay in the background.
I got to get in on this because I just can't sit in the sidelines. But I reference third-party deliveries as the drive-through of the 80s. Right? So if we think back in the 80s when drive-throughs started popping up, it's really what we are living today in this third-party model, right? And back in those days, there was QSRs that didn't have drive-throughs that were having probably the same conversation. Do I need a drive-through? Should I have a drive-through? And today, it's pretty hard to have a QSR today without a drive-through, right? Yeah. And their sales really suffers. So I think we got to just kind of look at the past as well as the looking forward. And I truly believe this is the drive-throughs of the 80s. So there's my 2 points.
Yeah, well, and my only point would be is I just look at the dollars spent on this platform. The billions of dollars that are being invested in third party really makes me doubtful it's going to go away. But to everyone's point, both good and bad, there are definitely challenges. And my own personal analysis is know your numbers. Otherwise, you could be speeding your own demise if you don't understand how it's impacting your costs. That would be my final point. Let's move on because the time, as expected, the time's going quick. I want to move over. We're kind of let's go to the labor side. I want to get Josh on the speaker here. Let's talk about labor shortages, rising labor costs. It's on every restaurateur's mind. I know in Restaurant Canada surveys, I believe it's number 1 or number 2, if not number 1 on minds right now. Josh, I'd love to hear your input. What are some innovative strategies restaurants are adopting to tackle these challenges?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. And you're spot on about what's happening in Canada. We're seeing the same trends in the U.S. Labor is just such a massive challenge. It's such a massive piece to overcome. Some of the solutions out there, modifying restaurant services. So if it's offering only dine-in services during specific times of day, we see that. We talk to restaurateurs all the time. Combat. Listen,
Josh, sorry, can I stop you for a second? Can you expand on a little bit more when you say modifying services? I don't totally get what you're trying to say there.
So it's essentially piggybacking on what we just talked about, which is not allowing delivery services during certain times of days because it impacts your labor costs. You need somebody to make the food. You need somebody to package the food. Often you need a food runner.
Okay.
And so only allowing dine-in during specific times of days is one unique piece we're seeing. You've got crippling high turnover and retention is just a big challenge. And so we see restaurateurs that are offering unique incentives, whether it's tuition reimbursement, whether it's childcare reimbursement, whatever you can do to reduce your turnover. And ultimately, with turnover, the domino effect is then you have recruitment costs and then you have training costs. And of course, the plug for hire would be embracing new technologies, embracing technologies like our platform. We operate an app-based platform that, as I like to say, it solves restaurateurs' biggest problem and changes their life. We allow you to overcome staffing shortages. Much the same way that Uber matches passengers with drivers, and these food delivery apps we're talking about matches people with the food they're craving. We match workers that are experienced in the space with open shifts. So whether you're talking barbacks, whether you're talking bussers, hostesses, food runners, line cooks, dishwashers, I mean, those are the most popular skills on the platform. And Hire lets a restaurateur post open shifts on our app, and then you get to see all the experienced workers that apply for that shift, and you can choose whoever you want, whoever best fits your need and your brand. You get to see ratings, work history, skill level, photos, social media accounts. It's really just a hyper efficient way to help fill the open shifts in your schedule, which everybody has. It's the number one thing that we hear when we talk to restaurateurs. I can't find enough people. My labor costs are too high. And the idea is, given our model, we handle everything from there, from payroll, taxes, in-app credit card payment, insurance. We issue tax forms at year end. And we've managed across the US and Canada to deploy Hire. We've got 25,000 restaurant workers on the platform, over 25,000 that are already working in the space. These are people that want to supplement their income. They want to pick up a few extra shifts a week or a month because they aspire to earn more money or do a little more with their lifestyle. They might not be getting enough hours at their current job. And, so we've made this huge talent pool available to really help remove the risk that comes with understaffing and the cost risk that comes with turnover and recruitment.
Thank you for that, Josh. I'm curious, why are we having a problem though? What is the undercurrent that's driving this behavior? Typically restaurants was a learning ground for young youth to get their first job. So why has that changed? Do we have less population now, or what's the undercurrent?
Yeah, I definitely alluded to it earlier. There's a much lower population of younger workers that are available for restaurateurs to tap into. We also see this, a record low unemployment rate that makes finding new people to come work in your industry a bigger challenge. As the father of a 16-year-old kid, I can also say that, there's a different mentality. When I was 16, I was washing dishes and bussing tables. And, my daughter, as much as I try and instill in her that hospitality is the way to go, people's needs and wants and expectations have evolved over the years. And, I don't think we in the hospitality space are portraying the excitement around the industry that once existed when, us on this panel and many of our viewers today were in our younger years, we'll say.
Okay. So other than Josh's platform, which is Hire, what else can they do though? I'm assuming you're not in every market or every small town. If I'm a small town restaurateur and I have the same lament, the same complaints, what other things could I employ? And this is open to everyone, including Josh. I'm
happy to pass the floor over to pass the mic over to someone else if they want to contribute to the labor piece.
Yep. Any other perspectives from anyone else, panelists? Jason? Yep, go ahead.
Here's a quote. from the National Restaurant Association, who have far more resources and money than I do to do these research. Across industries, research has found that 87% of millennials think that training and development is crucial to success. Moreover, 93% of employees indicate they would stay at a company longer if employers invested in their careers, from the National Restaurant Association.
Well, you just pulled the Band-Aid off it, didn't you? That's a great observation, great comment. I think when I think about independents, would you agree with me that the independents tend to not invest in their training very well versus like
I think the restaurants don't invest in training very well.
Sorry?
I think that restaurants now,
yeah,
and to speak to Josh's comment about back when we were 16 and bussing and washing dishes, etc. There was a training program. It wasn't follow Betty or follow Brian. They've been here for 3 weeks. That's your training, right?
Yeah.
We have to reinvest into making sure that our people know their job, know our products, know how to talk about them, and know how to be efficient.
It's bringing professionalism to the trade, isn't it?
In your people, then they want to stay. This is from the Restaurant Association, National Restaurant Association. This is their comment. So 93%, that's not a little bit.
Thank you.
I agree.
Great insights.
I agree 110% with you on that. I just think a lot of times training is kind of gone by the wayside, where now a lot of these restaurants, training is maybe, a follow shift, a test, and then you're on the floor, where back in my day, you have the week, 2 weeks of training where it's like classes. You sit down, you take notes, you take quizzes, you shadow for at least a week before you even think about getting on the floor and making money. And I think a huge kind of reason why it's kind of playing into that is the attrition, where these servers, they're not retaining servers, they're not retaining talent, where they might not be making money. A large reason of that might be they don't have that menu knowledge, where I can't tell you how many times I go to a restaurant where I ask what the special is, or just kind of testing their knowledge, what an ingredient is, where I know, but I'm asking them to kind of test their knowledge. They don't know it. So what use are they to that restaurant, to that establishment, if they, A, don't have the on-job training, B, the menu knowledge, and that just work ethic where, they're kind of huddled up at the hostess stand, talking on their phone. I just think that quality of customer service, that quality of hospitality, to me, in my eyes, has kind of slipped over the years, where they now anticipate and expect, or a lot of restaurants might not do an autograt, where you do the very bare minimum because you're getting that automatic gratuity. So I think training, it comes back to that. When that person first walks in for their first day of training, you're giving them the knowledge they need and the tools they need, and making sure you're weeding out the people who are slackers or might not want to be there for the right reasons out the door. And I think you might get less hires, but those hires will be retained and be, veterans or years, or might even then, climb their way up the ladder. So I definitely agree. It all comes back to that training and knowledge.
What other industry, what other industry brings their frontline people? I'll use a car dealership, for example. We're going to bring a guy off the street. You're going to start tomorrow. Go sell cars. So, hi, Mr. and Mrs. You ready to buy? Yeah. No? I'll come back later. Can I get you something to drink?
Exactly.
You got it.
No other industry does that, because they would be dying the way that our industry is dying.
100% agree.
Maeve, go ahead.
Yeah, I completely agree with what all of you have said. I think the other thing that we need to remember, given the industry that we're in, and we're dealing with people all the time, I mean, that's why people come to a restaurant generally for face-to-face interaction, that we also need to take care of the emotional and mental needs of our workers. It's not just going to be training, but it's going to go a lot farther than that. Just like every other industry, for the most part, has to worry about their healthcare, their mental health. How are these guys doing? Because if they're not happy, if they're dealing with stress, all of that's going to come through, particularly for the front of house staff. And you're already hearing more and more higher end independent operators investing in the emotional and mental health, because especially for those guys, and this is true back of house probably even more so, you are dealing with long hours, pressure situations. So I think that we need to remember that it's training as well as care of the employees. I was an independent restaurant for 4 years, tiny coffee house. So we only had 6 employees, but they were younger. It was their first job. And it's a poor area, so they were dealing with all kinds of issues, from whether they could pay their rent to elderly parents, sick siblings, etc., drug overdoses and whatnot. And so we invested a lot of time to make sure that they were okay on every level, as well as taking care of them with salary, as well as making sure that they were trained and empowered to make good decisions. So I think the industry really has to think about that, the mental and emotional health of their employees as well.
Well
Thank you,
said.
panelists. Those are all.
I agree with
From my
Sabrina?
from my perspective, oh sorry.
No, I was just saying, go ahead.
All really great points, and kind of weave back to my perspective is, so I teach at a culinary school and a city college with a really fabulous culinary program, and I see a lot of lost opportunity for operators to become part of that education process by being a place to have students come and do their co-op or learn about their establishment, their offerings, their models. All of these, partnership opportunities are really not being taken advantage of, and not just at the college level. I know of a lot of high schools that have mature students who have trade skills programs as part of their curriculum, and the students, they're hungry. They're hungry to learn and to get into the industry, to make the connections. They're maybe a little bit timid to promote themselves or to ask for an opportunity. So if operators and schools can make partnerships with each other, that gives the students an avenue to work their way in. And so long as the operator understands that, it's not just free labor, and that it is, their responsibility to train them and be part of their professional development, part of their culinary journey, then that's going to help them with retention and growth, right? Because there's going to be that loyalty, that bond, because we all know that the younger we can get to a consumer, the longer we're going to have that customer. It's the same thing in a professional industry, right? We all remember our first sous chef, our first chefs, and hopefully it was a good experience. And there's that bond that you have with them. And so that will continue through each person's career, but that connection between education and industry, I think, is a lost opportunity that, more operators, if they found the right person to connect with at the different educational institutions, they could, build those bridges, because the schools are just as eager to have a great place for their students to go and to learn and to take that knowledge that they've learned, that they've, had in the labs, and bring it into industry. Because labs are great, of course, they build that foundation, but until they get, into the hot seat of the kitchen, they're really not going to be able to utilize them and hone them. So I think that making those connections, like I said, with culinary colleges and high schools with the trade programs is a great way for operators to get young talent that they can grow and develop in their operation.
I have a question for everyone on the panel, and since I'm the host and moderator, I want to ask this question. I totally agree with the investing in the people. Even all our demographic data tells us Gen Zs of the world's out there, they look for that kind of support. But I'm curious to know, if I'm an operator, I'm struggling right now, should I be looking for ways to provide the service with less bodies in the restaurant, i.e. electronic menu boards, self-serve kiosks? Are those things I should be exploring, or am I shooting myself in the foot at the end of the day by removing more customer-facing people? What's the thoughts on that?
Great question.
You been to McDonald's lately?
Oh, I got you thinking. That's good. Come on, guys. You're the experts.
Have you used the kiosk?
Yes, I have.
Fast food lately? How good? How long did you wait for your food? How was your experience?
Well, and so this is my point, though. Is for example, the major global brand decided to put in kiosks, and I was told that was an attempt to reduce customer counter people, but that allowed them to invest those people to get on the floor and work the room and elevate the guest experience. So I'm just wondering, you're nodding your head no, but I agree. It didn't elevate. There was no guest experience improvement, but we're all getting used. We're also digital world now that we're all used to punching things on a board. And I believe these same restaurant brands are finding their sales are going up because the consumer is now shopping the menu board and adding little extras on their own now, and they're getting a lift in sales dollars. I'm just wondering if I'm struggling as a restaurateur, should I be changing my model? Do I go from table service to more counter service? Like, are these things I should do to my brand, or do I find ways to stay true to my brand and look for other paths for savings?
I would say that there's pros and cons, obviously, for both camps, and we could talk about that endlessly. But I would say it's really understanding who your demographic is. Who are you serving? If your establishment is very much about the experience, then maybe that's not the right fit for you. And a forced fit is worse than anything, right? You don't want to make it feel like you're trying to do something you're not good at. But if you're targeting millennials and Gen Zs who are busy on the go, they're in and out because they're busy and fast-paced lifestyles, and the waiting even for 5 to 10 minutes for their order to be filled is an inconvenience, or that's a negative tick on the experience column, then maybe it is something worthwhile to explore, and it's serving that clientele better, and it's also addressing the labor issue that a lot of places are having. So I think it really comes down to understanding who you are serving and making sure that you're still serving them well by being true to your brand. So if it doesn't fit, then it's not great. Find another solution. But I would say in some cases would be beneficial.
Thanks, Sabrina. Listen, we're already 50 minutes into the webinar. Time is going by like no one's business. I want to get 2 more topics in, hopefully, and still have a rapid fire. Let's quickly move over to social media. I'm just going to throw one question to the crowd, our social experts out there. I've got 3 questions, but I'm going to pick one, the one I think might be the most meaningful one for us. Trust and transparency are big trends in 2020. How can restaurants share their process and progress in this area on social media in an authentic way? What should our operators be thinking about?
I'd love to chime in on that. Trust and transparency. More and more, we all know, everybody wants to know what the source of the food is, where the meat comes from, where the fish was farm raised or from the ocean, or the type of beef, if it had antibiotics or not. And I think by you having that info on social media, which by the way is a tool that everybody should use because it's free. It's free advertisement dollars. And I think by kind of, showing the process, showing the process of where the food's from, where it's cultivated from, how it's sourced, the diet, that kind of puts the consumer at ease, where they now say, okay, I know where this comes from. I know where my food is sourced from. I want to eat local if it's local. So it kind of checks a bunch of things off the boxes for the consumer, where they know now and have the answers to these questions before they step foot into the restaurant. So that's a great way to use it, I think, kind of, educating the customer, the consumer on some of these things before they come in the door of the restaurant.
Quick question, video or post?
Both.
Video.
Yeah.
Video.
I definitely would say video. At least with American Gen Z, they are participating in YouTube more than they are any other social media platform. They've left Facebook, they're leaving Instagram, and they're, I can't remember all the stats, but they're using YouTube almost consistently all day long, and they're actually participating, like they're interacting with brands as well, and they're not anti-watching branded videos. So I would say video is a great way to communicate. You can show your back of house. For David's point, you can show how you source, what your ingredients look like, how your staff goes about their day, and that kind of emotional and transparent and very honest look at what it takes to get the food out the door, I think can build a much deeper relationship with your patrons. Obviously, make sure everybody's got a clean apron on, but still.
Yeah. And that also, shows how you justify the expense, where you're not getting frozen raviolis out of the box. You have somebody back there hand rolling stuff and showing that video or showing that picture, like, oh, everything's handmade. Okay, I guess I'll spend that extra couple of dollars on that quality.
Mm-hmm. I think it also gives, it also gives the opportunity to showcase some of your employees, right? So you can say, this is Kevin, he's our dishwasher. And a lot of people maybe don't realize that the dishwasher is the heart and soul of the back of house, right? And so he's fabulous. In his spare time, he plays guitar and goes water skiing, whatever it is. But again, it's building that bond, that emotional connection with the audience, but it's also making Kevin feel like a rock star. He's getting his, you know, his 15 seconds of fame, or 15 minutes, whatever, 15 seconds today. But, you know, so it's just, it kind of encompasses all of the things that, or a lot of the things that we're trying to work on in industry. And so I agree, video is definitely a great way to go. And play, like even on stories, posts are fabulous, but videos in stories on Instagram, and then, you know, you can link to all your other channels and platforms, which helps your SEO strategy and really gets your digital footprint out there. So I think video is great, but yeah, again, give Kevin his 15 seconds and highlight the dishwasher.
Jason, I'm curious. Jason, what are you thinking?
Well, I mean, I have a show on LinkedIn and called Real Hospitality Live, and we specifically talk about with our clients too about putting video on LinkedIn, where it's a different demographic. I agree with Maeve wholeheartedly on the younger demographic, but the most loyal customers, period, are Gen X and not necessarily millennials, but people who are my parents' age and who are 50 and up. These are people who are loyal to a brand, loyal to a product. They go to a restaurant once a week. They go every Sunday after church. These are people who stay loyal for years. This is a base, and that's where these people are. Is LinkedIn, and video works on LinkedIn.
Before we move on, Josh, just out of courtesy, did you have anything you wanted to say, or no? We can move on.
In the interest of time, we'll move on.
Okay. One more topic. We haven't gotten to the menu section itself. We've kind of danced around it through various conversations. I'd like to talk about the big elephant in the room. There's this funky trend going on called plant-based proteins. And I'd love to hear your perspective on, is this for real? Do I need to be in this game? Is that just for certain styles of restaurants, or is this something we have to embrace, no different than gluten-free now on menus and those kind of allergy trends? Who would like to go?
Yeah, I definitely think it's here to stay. As a person, like, I'm a chef first and foremost, but I'm definitely huge into fitness. And I think over the years, a lot of people becoming more health conscientious, more in the gym. I see 24/7 gyms popping up everywhere, and people just, you know, looking for alternatives besides, you know, meats, dairy, and other things, or you now have the different tofu, soy-based products, plant-based products, Impossible burgers, vegan burgers, the list goes on and on and on. And I just think that the more it catches on, the more it spreads, the more readily available it will be in restaurants. So I would, as a restaurateur or a chef or somebody in the industry, I would not fight the tide. I'd go with it, where I wouldn't reinvent my menu, but definitely have those 2 to 3 options where you can then retain that money inside of house, or them going elsewhere and spending that money, because it's everywhere. McDonald's and Burger King recognized it, and it's even in their restaurants now. So I think at the grassroots level, I find it very important to have that, so that way you have dining options for everybody sitting at that 10 top, at that 5 top, where they're not feeling excluded, where they're kind of making a makeshift vegetarian or vegan meal where they have asparagus, broccoli, or like, you know, a side of white rice. That's boring. They give them the experience also to where you have the vegan, you have the pescatarian, you have the carnivore, which is me. I'm all about meat, but everybody has that nice, amazing dining takeaway, same level of service, and they have a great dining experience.
What are other
So do it.
Jason?
Sabrina hasn't had a chance to talk. I could go all day about this, and I will say, but Sabrina too.
Yeah, I agree. And again, coming back to understanding who your customers are, right? And so if you're serving people who are very health conscious, then have a ton of plant-based options. If it's something to have as in case they're, that diner is coming in with somebody who's more of a carnivore, then have a few options. But I think the trick is to make it customizable. And so there's, you can swap it in the same way that you can get a burger with a gluten-free bun. You can get a burger with all these delicious toppings and garnishes and all the, pizzazz, and you can have it with, a plant-based patty. So simple solutions that aren't going to be a ton of trouble for the operator, but I would definitely have them on the menu. So that way you're satisfying as many many different types of clients as you can. So I don't think that it's going anywhere. So I would suggest finding ways to make it fit your menu.
For sake of time, is it fair to, quick show of hands or yes or no, is it fatal to ignore it and not have it on the menu? Yes or no?
Yes, at this point, yeah.
You should have a component of your menu, should have a plant-based kind of a focus. Doesn't have to be all your menu, but it needs to be there. Is an agreement, or do you have a different opinion?
I think so. In some areas, yes. In some areas, in a gray area where like a Houston's or a chain or something like that, or like there's a kind of an American cuisine type of restaurant setup. Yes, but I think when you get to more of the niche places like your seafood restaurant or your steakhouse, you go to a steakhouse 9 times out of 10, you're getting a steak. So I think certain establishments like that can get away without those options because essentially, that's what you go there for.
My only question to that, David, is: are you risk losing the Gen Z, who's part of a group of 4 or 5 other people that want to go for the steak, but I'm not one Gen Zer that wants to have that option? Did you just lose 5 people? Would be my question.
Possibly, but I think in the same token that establishments of that nature, you kind of know what you're going there for because it's known for their steak. So you might want to offer that as an option, but I think a Morton's or a Ruth's Chris, those type of establishments are known for steaks, where you might have that 1 or 2 people. They may, but I think they could take that blow as opposed to more of an American restaurant or Italian restaurant or something that's not quite as niche as that steakhouse or that seafood house. But I definitely suggest it across the board, though.
Thanks, David. Jason, I just want to ask you, any thoughts around this?
A whole lot.
Okay.
Number 1, vegetables are not new.
They are.
Going back to Chef David's original comment at the beginning of the program, we have so many different influences and new recipes and new foods coming into the North American market. What you'll notice is most of them are the foundation is plant-based, okay? In such a way that around the world, people eat vegetables and meat's a trend. It's a luxury. So what we've done is we've turned meat into a trend in the last 50 years, 40 years, where we've cheapened it to the point where we've made it accessible. So we have turned it into a trend. But going back to your comment about menus, inclusion is key. So challenge your chefs, and as chefs and R&D departments, you should have things that don't have meat in them throughout your menu. It shouldn't be a separate segregational menu. Do you have vegan options? Well, we have interesting and wonderful and delicious and locally sourced and crafted products in our menu throughout. You shouldn't have to go, where's your vegan menu? You should be able to at least address that through creativity. And I've said this several times lately, actually. People have come to me and said, well, what do you think is the next interesting thing that people can get involved in? I say, take a look at what other countries are doing with vegetables and ingredients and spices and seasonings and substituting these things, or even having more creative challenges in your kitchen. It should be a part of what we do.
Well said. Actually, that's nice. was a nice way to wrap up the message. I think that was very good. It's like suddenly vegetarian is like new thing.
It's
right?
not.
You eat it every day. So listen, we're at a full hour, and we're going to wrap this up with a rapid fire question for each of you. It's the same question. The question, I'll keep it very simple. From your perspective, 2020 has a lot of challenges. You all have different viewpoints, what those challenges are. If you had one piece of advice to give our customers, listeners today to improve their 2020, what would be that one thing you would encourage them to change, adopt, whatever? I'll start with, start from the beginning again. Start with Chef David. We'll go with you first. What's that one thing?
One thing, knowing your audience, knowing your demographics, knowing who's coming into your actual restaurant, and then kind of dialing into that, tapping into that, where you're listening to their feedback. So if need be, you can adjust, you can adapt. As far as the actual menu itself and offering options that are plant-based, that are vegan, I definitely think if you're not doing it now, definitely start doing it. Where again, as Sabrina said before, something as easy as adopting, a vegan burger where you can insert different buns, different vegan cheeses, different plant-based things, stuff of that nature. And last but not least, if you're not using social media, get up and use social media. It's free advertisement. It's global. It's everywhere. As simple as a couple of videos a day, a couple of posts a week, and it could definitely help drive, Peggy Sue, who might not have known anything about your restaurant, coming in because you saw that one Instagram hashtag or post. So definitely use social media. It's something I use a lot, and it's a valuable tool, I think, going forward now and for a long time to come.
Thank you, David. I'll turn it over to Sabrina. What is that one thing?
I think David kind of took all my points, but honestly, I would say the same thing: is figure out who you are serving and then be relentless in giving them what they want and what they find valuable. And, you can't be everything to everybody. So, and don't get too bogged down by the trends, because every November we start hearing about what's going to be, the big thing for next year. So really, less is more sometimes. Just, stick to serving your clientele and still staying true to your brand and why you are in this insane industry, and for the love of it. Because if you don't love it, you can't, you're not going to be successful at the end of it, right? So figure out who your customers are, be relentless, and don't get too bogged down by the trends, I would say.
Thanks, Sabrina. Josh, I'll turn it over to you from an HR side. What's the one thing?
Definitely one piece of advice would just be to have a well-rounded staffing strategy. I know I'm biased, but that includes embracing new tech like Hire for staffing, or we talked earlier on this call about training. Listen, there's a great tech platform out there called One Huddle. It helps onboard your new hires faster and quicker. Embrace attraction and retention incentives like the ones I highlighted earlier, whether it's tuition reimbursement, childcare reimbursement. This is all part of a well-rounded staffing strategy that's going to help you attract and retain people and make sure that your restaurants are fully functioning from a staff perspective so that your customers are happy. And that's really what it comes down to.
Thanks, Josh. Maeve, turn it over to you. What's the one thing from your side?
Yeah, and I'd say Sabrina stole mine, but I'm sticking with it. I'm not going to change. To have a really, really strong brand strategy and menu strategy, and then view every single opportunity, trend, solution through the lens of your brand and menu strategy. And if it doesn't fit the mark for those two things, let it pass by you. It's not going to be worth jumping on it, confusing everything, and distracting you from your primary strategy. It's never going to work out for you as well as you think it is. So develop those two and you'll be solid going forward.
Awesome. And last but not least, Jason, one thing.
One thing that doesn't go out of style and doesn't go out of trend is the fact that we have operations in communities. Introduce yourself to your community. The reason why large brands, for example, Tim Hortons in Canada, McDonald's around the world, have become part of their community long before social media and marketing. I fully support and fully believe in social media marketing, but I also fully believe in getting out and knowing who is in your community. Support them introduce yourself to them, walk up and down the street, go around the block, stop in at the local mechanic shop and say, hey guys, did you know that we've got a burger shop down the street? Did you know that we can stop into your local school? Stop in and introduce yourself to your community. You can't just sit and do social media all day. People buy from people who they know and people who they are introduced to and who they can have a conversation with. Get out, introduce yourself to your community. I tell the same thing to my clients, to my franchisees, the same thing. Get off your ass and get out and talk to people.
Amen.
Do we have to beep out the ass comment? No, I'm just kidding.
I didn't realize it was NBC.
Okay, so listen, we're slightly over 60 minutes. I know Jay's been in the background watching the chat line. Jay, you want to offer?
Well, I was just going to say, can I answer the question too?
No.
I'd love to. I think the one thing in obviously, and by the way, you guys all plugged your organizations and things very well. Well done on that. Jason, we'll talk later. No, but I was just going to mention on this is the one thing we talk with 6,000 independent restaurants our department does every year in Canada. Like, that's unheard of, first of all. So we're pretty cool. But one thing also on that is that the one thing we need to do in this industry, and it's something that I just truly believe that we need to do, is we need to embrace it more. And we need to share it with the public, with the people, with our family, friends. We got to remember where it came from and where it's going. And we need to spread the love in it. We need to love this industry. Because when you think about it, we all started in restaurants. We all started as probably a dishwasher or a host or somewhere in this industry, and to where we are today on a call like we have, it's pretty outstanding. So to do this, we need to talk about this. We need to embrace it. We never need to look at it as going to disappear or be a shift. There's going to be changes throughout the history of it. And we've seen that in the past, from third party to drive-throughs to plant-based to pulled pork sandwiches. All these different things have come and gone. But I think the one thing is we just got to be true to it, and we got to embrace it. We got to talk about it, and we got to love it, because it's a pretty amazing industry to be a part of. And what we get to do every day is pretty incredible when we reflect back on what our days like. So I just want to share that, because I don't know of an industry out there that is better than what we get to do every day. And we get to share our passion. All our chefs are artists in my mind as well. And we get to share and pull public in to have conversations and to talk about our days, our good or bad. And we get to share that. And it brings everyone together. And we got to do more of that, because we got a pretty crazy world out there that we need to bring everyone together and talk about stuff again, right? So if it's on a couch and you're eating third party, it's on a couch eating third party. If it's in a fancy restaurant downtown New York, Josh, I'm jealous. It has to be there, right? But we need to continue to do this and love this industry.
Thank you, Jay. So we're over time. Jay, I think you have some slides at the end.
Well, we always got slides, right? So here we go.
Hopefully I just want to mention while those slides are coming up, I just want to say thank you to all the people that were online chatting. I was watching the chat feed. I wish we had the time to talk to you about them. Oh, what did you do with your share there, Jay?
Yeah, it's coming.
It's coming. The slide's coming. So thank you to all the people online that were commenting and chatting. I wish we could have given you an opportunity to pause and ask the panelists. I'd like to hope that maybe we can do this again. If our panelists enjoyed this, we'd love to have you back. Are we gonna get these slides, or am I just gonna wing it?
No, I'm gonna. What I'll do is I'll talk about them, Greg.
Okay. Then you wrap it up for us, please.
We're gonna have, so there's tons of questions. So first of all, thanks for everyone that was able to attend today from a customer side and from an attendee side. We had an amazing turnout today and some amazing questions on a variety of the subjects that we addressed today. We're going to go through that, and Greg and myself are going to do a podcast after, talking about a lot of these questions that are coming up. So we'll address some of those in the podcast. This will be on Spotify as well as Cisco's YouTube channel. A couple plugs for Cisco here. Please follow us on our social media platforms: YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Cisco Canada. It's pretty simple. Follow us there. We have other webinars that are coming up this year. We have Paul Barron from Foodable Network coming up in February 26th, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Paul's going to talk about the Canadian industry. He wrote an article recently that's just outstanding. And he's going to talk about that with Greg and myself. And then we have some other webinars coming up in March, cooking with plant-based. We're going to have some chefs on, and we're going to cook live, which is pretty cool as well. And really, we're going to keep pushing the level of what we have with great guests like we have today. So on that, I want to thank every one of you that was on the call today. David, Maeve, Jason, Josh, Sabrina, Greg, maybe. But I just want to thank you all. You know, I know how busy your schedules are. To spend time with us means a huge amount to us, and we really appreciate it. And moving forward, like I said, we've got some amazing other guests that are come up. So thanks again for everyone that attended today. You know, stay tuned. Watch us on social media. We've got lots of great things coming up, and love this industry. Okay.
Before you disconnect, Jay, I just want to pass on my thank you as well to the panelists. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to your banter and your dialogue and input, and you all bring interesting perspectives, and it was great. I only wish we had more time. There was just so much to cover. So thank you all again from my side as well. And to our listeners, again, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.